Good morning. Good morning. Nice. My name is Roberto Suarez. I'm one of the Pathway Guidance Managers in our Student Affairs Division and a proud member of the Academic and Career Pathway and Guidance team. Welcome to a new day. Yeah, come on. Now, those of you who know me know that I am a bit of a movie fan, and I like to kind of look at life through a cinematic lens. The experience we've had over the course of these past 2.5 years, reminds me of a scene in Ron Howard's film, Apollo 13, about a failed mission to the moon. Hold on. At one point in the movie, the spaceship carrying the protagonists must circumvent around the moon in order to gain enough momentum to return back to Earth. The Apollo 13 crew must traverse to the dark side of the moon in a malfunctioning ship, losing all communication with mission control for several hours. They are hopeful that they will make this journey safely and that upon completing this rotation, they will be on a trajectory that will put them en route to our home planet. However, nothing is guaranteed. All these plans are speculative. Even if they do make it safely around the moon, there are still many unknowns waiting to be uncovered. In many ways, we, the PCC community, are completing our orbit around the dark side of the moon. During this turbulent and challenging time, we have continued to move forward, not necessarily in our best shape, providing support to our students and to one another as we have traversed unknown territory. Now, our community is beginning to complete our own treacherous maneuver, once again stepping into the light of a new day. And like the crew of the Apollo 13, we too face many unknowns that are yet to be revealed to us. Yet we remain hopeful as we return to our campuses and centers, present to each other and to our students, together as one community. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce one of my favorite members of the PCC community, PCC's Interim Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Tracy Fordham, who will do today's land acknowledgement. Tracy.
Thank you, Roberto. Good morning. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage, experience, and difference. We begin this gathering today by acknowledging what is often hidden and by honoring the truth. PCC resides on the ancestral lands of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes and summer encampments along the Columbia River. We pay respect to their elders, past and present, and consider the legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and resettlement that are part of our living history on Native and Indigenous land, including the many public colleges and universities established through the U.S. land grant system, and other policies that allow for expansion of post-secondary education without the incorporation of treaty rights. The Portland Community College Strategic Plan has identified an emerging commitment to acknowledging and supporting Native and Indigenous communities, specifically with the engagement and recommendations from the Native Nations and Indigenous Equity Steering and Action Group of the DLDC. Please continue to think about and support the college's efforts to materialize the commitments related to place, policies, programs, and participation for the Native nations, tribal, and Indigenous communities we serve. We also ask you to consider moving beyond acknowledgement and reflection to action by contributing to PCC scholarships for Oregon tribal students.
Thank you, Tracy. Our community extends beyond the faculty, staff, and students that are present in our spaces day in and day out at PCC. We are also fortunate to have the guidance of PCC's Board of Directors who help set the vision and values of this institution. Please join me now in welcoming our Zone 2 representative and Board of Directors Chair, Tiffany Penson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you guys this morning. It's nice to see all these people in person, so I applaud you for that. As Roberto mentioned, I am Tiffany Penson. I am the board chair and representative of Zone 2. And so I am also so delighted to be here at my first in-service. It's so impressive. I'm just happy to see people, y'all, to be honest. There's so many faces in the room, so many dedicated faculty and staff, from the instructors supporting the students in the classrooms to the custodians making sure that our campuses are safe and welcoming environments. So thank you for that. We all have a role to play in equitable student success. Before I introduce the amazing Dr. Bennings, I just wanted to assure you that the PCC Board of Directors are working closely with administration on the financial hurdles we face. At the PCC Board of Directors meeting last week, we approved goals for 22 and 23. These goals closely align with the college's strategic priorities and will help guide Dr. Bennings through her first year at PCC. I hear that Dr. Bennings has been out and about to most campuses and centers, including visiting the Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, where PCC offers programs to incarcerated females. Thank you for that, Dr. B. Hopefully, some of you have had an opportunity to connect with her on her many trips around the vast district. If you haven't, then do so. With that, I am excited to introduce PCC's 8th president, Dr. Adrien L. Bennings, to her first PCC in-service. I speak for the entire PCC Board of Directors when I say we are delighted to have Dr. Bennings at PCC and look forward to working with her for many years to come. And thank you. I want to get a photo of you guys because I haven't seen this many people at my job. So, smile. Thank you. Good morning.
Such an honor to stand here before you and see each of your lovely faces and just be a part of something that launches us into a new day, on today, but also beyond today. And so I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Chair Penson and our Board of Directors for your presence and your support, but also entrusting and empowering me to lead this next era of PCC's journey, which I understand has not been, smooth sailing. We've had some turbulence, but I'm here and hopefully can give you some insight into my vision, some of my perspective, and just really shape what a new day means for Portland Community College. I'm gonna make sure my clicker is working. So without, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our board of directors. And so I wanna acknowledge Director Lori Cremona Wagner. She is our vice chair, and she represents Zone 1. I want to acknowledge Director Chair Tiffany Pinson, who represents Zone 2. I want to acknowledge Director Michael Sonnleitner, who represents Zone 3. I'd also like to acknowledge Director Saren Bussell, who represents Zone 4. Dan Saltzman, who represents Zone 5. Director Mohammed Al-Ajuri, who represents Zone 6. Director Christy Wilson, who represents Zone 7. And I'd like to also acknowledge our student trustee, Lauren Riddle, who has been appointed recently over the last month. Come on, stand up. She's one of our students. It certainly is amazing to have a group of dedicated individuals who not only volunteer their time outside of their own busy days and work life, but who are committed to the mission of PCC. So I don't take it lightly that they serve in their own capacities as board of directors and representatives for Portland Community College. I'm gonna take a sip of my tea. So it's only fitting that we start with, remind you of our mission. And here you see that it is intentionally capitalized with some key words that are really critical into the work that we have yet before us to really strive to accomplish this in all the areas and ways that we work. So while the mission is important, I want you to know and understand that these are key elements that really encompass my life day in and day out. As long as I'm a member of PCC, it is really critical that I live these values, live these principles, demonstrate this day in and day out. So I'm going to do a little schooling in terms of, the teacher says, you remember the definition of this. So I'm going to give you some definitions just to kind of remind you of what these words mean. And so supports means to assist. So Portland Community College supports student success. And to assist or to help or to promote the interest or cause of. And many of you, if you haven't heard, student success is really critical to how we operate, what we do, and really promoting and advancing the experience of the students in such a way that is not only positive, but that it's also transformational. So student success is about understanding the fullness of the student experience at PCC, as well as designing systems and practices that will empower students in their educational journeys en route to whether that's a bachelor's degree or fulfilling career or upskilling or certificate program, whatever that means for them. Student success I focus on student success not from the outcome, but from the standpoint that it's influenced by the individual student experience. That's the systems, the protocols, the departments, the faculty and staff that our students encounter in their educational journey. We inspire learning through collaborative efforts to support the academic, social, and economic success of our students. And as many of you know, it's beyond just education, it's beyond just learning, but it is truly supporting them in their journey of life as well. Delivering. So it's not like, when you think of delivering, I know it's not like Amazon, you get a delivery, or DHL or anything like that, even though my husband is probably tired of having the Amazon packages show up on the porch, but got a few surprises. So, treat yourself, right? So, but delivering is to send, or intended target or destination. And when it talks about delivering access to quality education, access refers to the ways in which PCC as an institution and our policies ensure or at least strive to ensure that students have equal and equitable opportunities to take full advantage of their education. So as we consider equitable student success, equitable access for our students, we must also note that we don't just serve students. We serve individuals from different ages, different races, different religions, different genders, sexual orientation, disability, perceived intellectual ability, English language ability, family income, geographical locations. There is so much about the students that is beyond the surface of our students, beyond what you see. And so it's important for us to know that access might look different because of those factors and then some. Advancing economic developments. To advance is to move forward, to accelerate the growth or the progress of. So when we talk about economic development, it's the process by which the economic well-being and quality of life of a nation, region, local community, or an individual are improved according to targeted goals, objectives, or outcomes. So we have to sit back and ask ourselves, how are we as an institution contributing to the accelerated growth of our students, but also how is that shaping into a quality of life to where they can not only live, but they thrive in our communities, in our regions, in our nations and state. And last but not least, promoting to contribute to the growth or prosperity of. When we talk about promoting sustainability and a collaborative culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion, how are we focusing on using resources so that that resource is not depleted or permanently damaged? And we all know that one of those aspects is related to our finances, but there's so much more because there's human resources, there's a human capacity, and there's your ability to help support students. And so how are we helping you in your capacity as well to help fulfill the mission of PCC? So it's a new day. I am representing today. So I had to color coordinate, so I pulled out my brightest suit that I wear probably once a year. So, got the socks too, matching with, So anywho, it's time for renewal. Time to refresh our connections and energize our minds and celebrate our successes as we usher in new beginnings at PCC. So I want to read a little story to you, if you will. So imagine with me that it's one of those sultry summer afternoons. Your skin is moist from the heat, your clothes feel sticky, and the breeze is too half-hearted to provide much cooling. Nearby is a great tree. Sunshine, soil, and years have made it tall and proud. Many have found comfort in the shade of this great tree, and you join them, pondering the simple, elemental joy of sitting in the shade of a great tree on a hot day. Off in the horizon, you notice a darkening. COVID. There is a piling up of clouds and erratic winds that straightens and begins to blow more seriously. The sky takes on an ominous shade of a deep bruise. Occasionally, there's a gust that makes it all align, makes all the leaves align. The tree sways, but it does not bow its head. Too tall, too old, too proud. Suddenly, the wind dies down, but the clouds are accelerating. Then there's this deafening crack, and for a split second, every small detail of the tree is illuminated with a heavenly light. In that instant, the great tree is struck, riven, wounded, as the fire of God finds the dirt. The storm moves away. The tree stands for years and years. Still, little by little, year by year, it is less lush. It still stands tall and proud, but each storm claims another branch. The shade is not as deep or as wide. Now imagine another sultry afternoon. Off in the horizon, there is a darkening. There is a piling up of clouds, and the erratic wind straightens and begins to blow more seriously. The clouds sweep overhead, the afternoon darkens, and the sky takes on an ominous shade. But even before the main body of the storm can arise, in the midst of an ordinary gust, there comes another crack in the tree. This time, a crack that is twisting, a tearing sound as the huge tree topples to the ground. It lies there massively broken and enormously sad. Now think on this. We know when the tree fell, but when did the tree die? The tree has been dying for years and gone unnoticed until it manifested to the point where it physically fell. And I liken the tree in a number of ways. To PCC as a tree for our community and our students, but each of you as trees in this forest of life. And so when I look around, I know that COVID has impacted us each differently, some disproportionately, some we've had some significant life happening, some work has been overwhelming and just burning you out, and you're like, what can I do? What is happening? And in light of COVID and change and reorganization and enrollment and finances, almost like the Wizard of Oz. But I don't have any red hills to click and take us back home, right? So I acknowledge and I celebrate each of you for the time and efforts beyond the scope of what you've done, above and beyond what you really could be doing. I mean, you stepped outside of just the normal scope of your roles and responsibilities to help PCC still stand while there has been some dying in the midst of the trees. We've lost some branches, we've lost some life, but guess what? Elton John has this song. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on, I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. You get the point. So each day that you show up, each day that you rise, each day that you recognize that there is a greater purpose in why you are here, and each day you do that, you remind yourself that you're still standing. Now, I know we're not going to have a concert. I wish Elton John was here in his sparkly jacket and the sunglasses and the keyboard, but I couldn't get him on the books today. I think Eric told me we didn't have enough budget for him today, so we'll work on it next year. So when I talk about rising, I talk about how you show up. And sometimes people ask me, well, how do you show up the way that you show up each day? It's like you never change, and you are who you are, and you bring such energy. But guess what? There were times in my life where I was dying on the inside, but I knew that how I showed up impacted those around me, it impacted those I was serving, it impacted the outcome of my day. And so I made the intention to rise how I started my day, rise with the intention to serve in excellence every day. And when I tell you I've had some stuff happen in my life, but the same Adrien, Dr. B that you see today, you would never know. And I'll just give you some transparency. I had a crazy custody battle for almost 18 years of my daughter's life. I, in 2006 or 7, was clinically diagnosed with depression. But you would not know that because every day I rise, every day I work and strive to not allow the circumstances to impact me internally. And I had to overcome some things in my own life. And so I could only imagine. Lost my mom to cancer, but guess what? I'm still standing. So when I came in on my, I have to have the runner analogy. I love athletics, everything about me. There's so much that I learned from being an athlete in a community college, in a Division I school, as a professional athlete that really resonated, but also aligned with my role here in higher education. And so when I came in with an aim. And so that aim is alignment. How do I leverage the collective knowledge of employees, directors, students, board members, college leadership to develop actionable plans that all stakeholders understand and support? I'm in the process of alignment. This is something that will never change as long as I'm here at PCC. I will always be aligning, and in some cases, realigning. Integration. How do I ensure ongoing organizational development and assessment of operations, policies, and processes, and systems, and strategic plans? Momentum, because I'm always like, there was point in time when I was sponsored by Nike, and Nike says, just do it. And I'm all about, let's get it done. How are we going to do it? What do we need to do? What are we missing? And so I talk, but I walk, and I act. I do all of those things. And so some of those may take more time than others, but I'm all about momentum. Where can we continue to carry forward? Where can we continue to clarify and define and articulate immediate priorities, but also coordinating internal and external communication strategies and resources, and guiding progress on current priorities and initiatives, but also facilitating continuous planning for long-term success for the institution, for our students within our community, state, and region, and nation. And so the aim is aligned with discovering new possibilities. This was a strategic plan that was implemented long before I came on board, but it is something that I carry day in and day out in terms of how does the work that we are doing align with the 4 tenets of the strategic plan, which is belonging. How do we transform our culture, our learning culture toward creating a sense of belonging and well-being for every student? Delivery. Redefine. How do we redefine time and place and systems of educational delivery to create a more learner-centric ecosystem? And you know COVID has really shifted the way that we deliver, but it's also provided insight in terms of how we deliver and really revealed to us what we're capable of doing in times of pressure and unprecedented change. Workforce. How is PCC responding to community and workforce needs by developing a culture of agility? Our role will always be evolving based on the needs in our nation, our economy, our system, our communities, our demographics. We should always remain agile in terms of how we respond and not be responsive fully, but also take more proactive measures in how we're developing our plan for the future. And then enterprise. When I see enterprise, I think, so I'm a Star Trek fan. I can't do this though. I'm like, but hey, and Captain Kirk was my guy. I was like, oh, he is so handsome. Anyway, so enterprise cultivates like, hey, Spock. I can't do it. Can anybody do it? Anyway, cultivate a long-term sustainable college enterprise. And so the theme for the strategic plan is discovering new possibilities. What this means is that there is something, as long as PCC has been around, we've done some great things. We've done some things that we might have had to go back to the drawing board and tweak or refine or say, wait, we didn't do this so well, let's come again. But there is a great opportunity before us to discover. That means something that we haven't seen. That means something that we've not yet known. That means an opportunity that we have not yet explored. So we are at the precipice of discovering new possibilities. That doesn't mean not learning from what we did in the old, but that means taking that and bringing it into the new. And how do we need to modify it to move forward for the long-term future? So I'm all about discovering new possibilities and doing something not necessarily the same way, but a new way in accomplishing greater outcomes. So when I came in, this is just one of my favorites. I came in, when I interviewed and did the candidate forums, I came in with a personal and a professional mission of one together, together one. It's very simple, but it means that we as individuals are many, but we must work in a unified vision, effort as one for the greater purpose. We have one mission. I'm a president. I might have deans and vice presidents and faculty and classified and temporary, but guess what? There's only one mission. There's only one mission. And so all that we do must first guide us toward, are we aligning our efforts? Are we aligning the way we do things, our policies, our practices and systems with the one mission? And we can only do that as one together, together one. And I like to call it 1TT1. Whoop, whoop. So, as president, I must ensure equitable access, opportunity, affordability, and successful outcomes for all students. I must balance commitment to quality learning experiences, economic and workforce development, performance outcomes, and strategic priorities. I must preserve authenticity of our reputation and articulate the value of our institution throughout the community, region, and state. I must also cultivate an environment where the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging are intentional, they're consistent, they're evident, and they're effective. And that is my charge. So almost as long as I've been in the professional field, this chart has followed me everywhere I go. It's the way I do things. I don't change. And so we always must be in a systematic, continuous, and transparent manner, operate in terms of how do we assess? It's our current situation. Where are we? So when I came into Align, I'm asking, I'm having discussions, I'm meeting with groups and individuals to learn and assess where are we. But then there's also an analysis piece. Not only historical data and trends and challenges, but how did we do? Okay, I know that we are here. What got us here? How did we do? But also there's the exchange, which is the discussion with leadership and key stakeholders. And that's the part that's going to keep us moving forward. That's the part where we move forward from after assessing and analyzing. But it's a collaborative exchange and a plan for development. And then here you see the implementation, which is performance goals and activities. It's our present situation. How do we put it into action after we've done those three things? But then you always have to go back and evaluate to really challenge yourself in terms of accountability, in terms of results and outcomes and progress, to say, how did we do again? And what can we do differently? And I will promise you that there is no perfect way to do things. I can tell you that if I asked each of you how you bake a cake, we might come up with 500 different recipes, some gluten-free, some excluding eggs, some adding flax seeds, some with chocolate, some with vanilla, some with salt, and some with baking soda. I mean, but it still comes out a cake, right? And so you have to know that the way that we do things has to be systematic in terms of everyone has an understanding of the process. Everyone has an understanding of the policies. Everyone has an understanding of what we're intended to accomplish because of this, whatever that this is. And so I'm very intentional about that. So in terms of accountability, guess what? I have some goals too. There are some standards for me too that I hold myself accountable to. I have worked with the board, the president's cabinet, but also those in listening to you all in terms of the sessions that I've had with some of you as individuals and groups to shape how should I focus my attention as president of PCC. And so I like to kind of softly introduce you to some of the discussions. I had my first discussion with the board at our board retreat, and then we had our second discussion in really refining what my goals look like at our work session this past week. And for those of you that are interested, you will see this in more so a formal work plan, but I'll be formally presenting this to the board with their input that I gleaned from the work session last week. I'll be formally presenting this to the board at our October board meeting. So I'm doing it on a year-by-year basis. Now keep in mind, this may look like a lot, but it's not anything that is outside the scope of my responsibility. It's something that a president should be doing, and it's something that I have charged myself to do, and it's also something that I hold myself accountable to. If you know anything about athletes, each race there's always a different mark. You never run the exact same time. It goes down to the millisecond. Each mark in long jump that I did was always different down to, the millimeters in the jump and stuff. So, but there was also an opportunity to get better each time. And so this is just a starting point, but this is stuff that I have already dedicated most of my time and energy into now and recognizing where I need to explicitly identify this so that I am intentional and consistent and systematic about how I move forward in terms of these goals. So as many of you know, I am in my first year. I started July of this year. I'm excited to be here. There are numerous opportunities and challenges yet for me to accomplish, but I did not only seek the guidance and input of the board and the president's cabinet, but I took it all the way back to the executive profile, and that was the profile that was published before I got hired that said, this next president, here are the opportunities and challenges. And it also talked about the next president must be dynamic and a visual leader. That's the easy part for me. The challenging part, but also the greatest part that is before me, is just really leading the college in this first year transition to some of the critical changes that have happened. And so for the first year transition, just to give you some insight, one of my key areas is really developing relationships, not only with my leadership, but also union leadership, and also strengthening the board and president relations, senior leadership throughout the college. And so some of those key stakeholders also involve not just the board of directors, the president's cabinet, union leadership, but also the Educational Advisory Council and various groups that are formed across the campus. And so that's a part of my first year. I can tell you I'm in pretty deep. Most of my calendar is blocked off with meetings in terms of learning about all the things that are happening on the campuses, as well as in your realms and with initiatives going on. I'm also focused on shared governance. Governance is how we do things, how we get things done beyond just the structure. And so, I'm talking about committees, councils, task forces. How do we align with the structure of the board? How do we align with the goals? How do we align with that environment that is truly collaborative? And how do we ensure that there's an intersection and there's an integration of our work together in areas that have common themes and specific priorities and initiatives that could be linked together? There's a great opportunity there. The next one is fiscal sustainability. I will not, this is always going to be a challenge, but also President's goal. I really am appreciative of Executive Vice President of Administration and Finance, Eric Blumenthal's leadership. He is a chief advisor to me in this area, but also very helpful in orienting me to the practices of the college, understanding the budget, but also helping to plan continually long-term for the institution. And so that is a key responsibility, because as I make recommendations to the board, we have to ensure that the college is fiscally sustainable for the long-term future. I know that we're dealing with the current situation, but it's current and it's also future focused. Operational excellence. I say operational excellence. The old personality type A used to be like about perfection. I learned a long time ago, I don't strive for perfection. I strive for excellence, meaning that there are going to be things that I put forth. There are going to be things that I put my hand to do to accomplish that may not have the outcomes that I expect. However, excellence means going back and recognizing that there could be another way of getting something done, and that although it may not be perfect, what is needed for the best outcome in the current situation. And so I'm all about operational excellence. Some of those tenets, just to give you an indicator in terms of what that focus is in that area, is process. How are our processes? And I'm talking about processes in different groups, in different departments. Workplace, coordinating and establishing an institutional approach towards workplace transformation. What does our system and technology look like? But also data. How are we leveraging our data? And our accreditation did speak to that as well in terms of their recommendations. And then also overall, I call it business process re-engineering. What do those processes look like in key functional areas where it touches every facet of the institution, i.e. HR, i.e. budget, those types of things. So I will be focusing my efforts on that. Government and community relations. These are critical. I'll share a couple of policy initiatives that have led to some key outcomes and also have led to PCC being a lead in terms of facilitating that amongst the community colleges. But this is very critical in terms of our advocacy, our partnerships, not only with community stakeholders, K through 12, business and industry, community nonprofit. All of those aspects are critical in terms of government and community relations. And so I'm so appreciative of Sage Learn, who is, she's my right hand when it comes to government relations, and she does a great, amazing job in preparing me for my visits with legislators and reps. And so I'm so appreciative of her expertise in that realm. Kate Chester, who has overseen the community relations aspect, that's very critical. And so I'm appreciative of those efforts and leading those for the institution at this time. Culture. So I changed this on my draft. It's not up here, but it's people and culture. I think I was in a meeting a week or so ago, and I focused on, I said, oh my gosh, the challenge, the technical, the administration, the policies and processes, that comes easy for me. But throughout my journey, the most challenging part and the place where I put most of my energy first has been people. And that has been key to my success, is focusing on people and having a people-centric approach, because it is because of you and only because of you that we can accomplish the mission of PCC. So I can't do that alone, and you cannot do it without the support of others and without the support and championing of the Office of the President as well. So it's very important for me to be a champion of the mission of a collaborative culture, but also having a people-centric approach here at our institution. And that's going to take some work on all of our parts, but that's something that I'm dedicated to leading. So next steps in terms of that, I already kind of talked to you about taking that before the board formally, but also having a formal presentation, because those goals will translate into my work plan for the college. So we talk about strategic enrollment management, right? And so this is just, PCC's at the heart of it, but guess what? It's more than just PCC. Enrollment doesn't start when students connect to PCC. There's so many sectors, there's so many facets, there's so many aspects that are critical to connecting with the enrollment plans for the college. And we do have a strategic enrollment priority underway. I would like to express my gratitude for Ryan Clark, who is leading those efforts, and those who are working with him. So I truly am excited about where this is going to take us. But when you talk about student strategic enrollment management, it's more than just, when they come to PCC. It's more than just when they are, in high school. But students are always learning. I say students, they're always learning from birth. I've heard 0 to 5 is one of the most critical learning ages for children, right? So that educational pipeline doesn't start when elementary starts. It doesn't start when early childhood starts. As soon as they are born, that's an opportunity to connect. How so? You're like, well, how do we connect with the babies? How do we connect with the children? But what there is an opportunity to do is connect with the parents and introduce some aspects in those settings with the parents that really shape the child's, parents, we shape our child's interest in our life, and we introduce things in their environment that could pique their interest, but also build upon their own skills and talent. So this educational pipeline is early childhood, elementary school, middle school, high school, college and university, and adulthood. Because even after college and university, or in the midst of college and university, you've got workforce related to adulthood. And so in between there, you see some broken pipelines, you see the water leaking and all that kind of stuff, because at each stage, there are gaps that occur because for whatever reason, whether it's environmental, economic, whether it's family, whether it's life, there are gaps that we have an opportunity to look at. Where are those pipes leaking, and what is happening, and what is PCC's role in building a strong strategic enrollment management plan? Strategic enrollment management is not just a responsibility of the president. Strategic enrollment management is everyone's responsibility. And it takes the research that's going to help ground some principles, but also help us to identify what it is we need to do to move forward, and where have we missed the opportunity, and where can we discover new possibilities in terms of strategic enrollment management. So this chart here, when I came in, I'm trying to get my words about me just to see how I want to talk about this chart, because I'm not going to read it to you, but you know, I've heard you in many different settings talk about just how the change of the reorg has been for some of you. For some, I've heard it's been refreshing. For some, I've heard it's been chaotic. For some, I've heard it's been challenging. For some, I've heard it's been surprising. I mean, I've heard a mix. I have heard you. However, it's important for me to take you back to the story that's happened long before I came on board, in terms of how we got to the reorg before I long came on board. And those started with discussions back in terms of 2016. We're talking about yes to equitable student success. You know, really committing to change, but first understanding the problem and looking at what solutions need to take place, but also building that foundation for change. You know, as a result of those dialogues, I understand that the one college reorg happened. And I was not here, but I do get a sense, and I do know and understand that it was hard and it was difficult, especially because the change was not only new to the college in terms of a minor change, it was a significant organizational change that impacted the district as a whole. And so I get it, I understand that, and I can only imagine, you know what that has meant for some of you. Some of you might have lost some of your peers as friends in that process, but here we are. Right? And so I bring this up to say this was a long part of the journey. We are still in the heart of change. As part of my task is to look at where do those changes need to continue. And I will be presenting some of those changes as I continue my assessment moving forward. But the change is in place. There's nothing for me to undo. There's nothing for me to redo. There's something for me to do in terms of maintaining momentum, yes. But also at each stage of the change, assessing and evaluating how are we doing. Right? So, you know, this is new way, old way. I don't know if you can relate, it's probably been a blur for some of you, right? But there comes a time, and we're at a juncture in time where we're moving forward in a new way in many ways, but not forgetting the history and our reputation and how we got here and the power of our impact in our students' lives and our communities. The new way, one of the things that's evident is that each president will lead differently according to, you know, their strengths, according to how they see the college needs to be led. And so I hope that you don't compare me to prior leadership, and I hope that you don't compare prior leadership to me, because we each lead differently. That's common in higher education. But what we don't do differently is we don't deviate from the mission in terms of our North Star. And so I always check myself first and foremost. How many of you heard the song, Check Yourself Before You Wreck Yourself? Chickadee, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So I always check myself and what I'm doing to first and foremost see how it aligns with the mission and the vision and you know, our strategic priorities. And so I'm going to try to breeze through this, but this is important. You know, look around you. What shoes are you wearing? I wore my colorful Reeboks today. Okay, it's the only pair of Reeboks. I was really Nike biased, but you know, I started to expand my shoe game. But so Reebok, I pulled out my color shoes today. What shoes are you wearing? Are you even wearing shoes? Can you wear shoes? When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is meant to be an illustration. Equality is everyone is getting a pair of shoes, but what if I gave everyone a pair of high heels in here and it was a size 6? Diversity is everyone getting a type of shoe. What if I gave some heels, some flip-flops, some tennis shoes? Equity is everyone getting a pair of shoes that fits. Like, what is the size shoe that you wear? Does it fit? And belonging is wearing the shoes you want without fear of judgment. Did you look at your neighbor and say, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they're wearing those kind of shoes? Right? So think about this. When we talk about equal access and equal outcomes, equal access does not equal equal outcomes. I don't care what math class you have taken. I know didn't Frank teach math? Yeah, so there's no way to spin it. So no way to do it, right? But look at this. Each box tells a different story, right? And so if the 3 individuals in each of the pictures are our students, what is that first box saying? Everyone gets the same box. That's equality. All of our students do not need the same box. Now look at the second box. So the shortest one got 2 boxes to help them see over the fence. The middle one got 1 box to help them see over the fence. So the students in the first one didn't need a box because they could see over the fence. So everyone got what they needed to see over the fence. That's equity. Like, what do our students need as individuals to succeed in their journey and en route to their next level as they pass along through PCC? But here's the reality in a lot of cases. The person who doesn't need the box gets the boxes. And it disproportionately puts them ahead of others who, may not have a box, as you can see, or, just have a box to peer over the fence. But a lot of our talk has been on how do we help students overcome barriers, but how do we also help bring a liberated mindset in terms of removing the barriers? So it's something to think about. So I'm gonna take probably 10 more minutes. So PCC is on a mission to help students succeed. And what this means is in every classroom, venue, office, process, and interaction, our continuous improvement will be invigorated by a laser-guided pursuit of student success. This focus on student success will inspire and inform everything we do as an institution. And as we build upon achievements and engage with students, faculty, staff, and board of directors, donors, and community stakeholders in the advancement of our mission, we will keep equitable student success at the forefront of our conversation. One thing I missed is in that chart where I talked about how long the conversation has been ongoing about the changes. I wanted to bring to your attention, don't look for yes to equitable student success as a program or as an initiative, because it's captured within the structure, it's captured within our systems, and it's captured within our processes. It's something that is designed to be ingrained into everything that we do, not to say, here is yes to equitable student success, here's the office for it, and here's the program. It's meant to be embedded in all that we do, and that was one of the intentions about the One College reorg. Now, I'm excited about the horizon. What that brings is our 2022 bond campaign. And so, as many of you know, PCC will have a $450 million bond measure on the November 8th ballot. The bond it is estimated to maintain the current tax rate because PCC is repaying outstanding bond debt. If passed, this $450 million bond will allow for infrastructure upgrades at campuses, including creating learning spaces with new technology that allows for hybrid instruction, updating technology and equipment for job training spaces, redeveloping aging buildings, and increasing facilities' lifespan and efficiency. Eric, remind me, what is this a graphic design picture of? What's that picture of right there? Yeah, I put him on the spot. Yeah. So that's a, what do you call it when a graphic design puts, y'all help me out here. Yeah, that's what it is. So there we go. All right. So anyway, it's intended to accomplish some great things to help us fulfill our mission. And we're talking about delivery, we're talking about enterprise, we're talking about belonging, we're talking about all these things that fit within our mission, but also our strategic plan. Y'all know about PTO. I'm not talking about paid time off. Because when people would say PTO, I'm like, but I can't use my PTO yet. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, Well, I'd like to thank the members of the PTO core team and the council for all of their work and efforts involved in this. But Pathways was codified first as a policy under HB 4043. And I'd also like to give a shout out, let me see, Elizabeth Guzman, Arroyo, are you in here? No? Okay, I'd like to give a shout out to her because she has done a great job in leading that and facilitating that across the 17 community colleges. But what PTO does focus on, it focuses on the unmet needs of our students. You're talking food, housing, healthcare, and security. So it's not just about education. It's about how are we meeting the life needs of our students to ensure that they can pursue an educational opportunity, to ensure that they can have a learning opportunity here at PCC, to ensure that we can be a facilitator of that economic development and that social and overall economic well-being for our students. And so this work is more than about education. It's about reorganizing to really meet the needs of our students beyond education. I also want to highlight Future Ready Oregon. And so those of you who have worked on this behind the scenes and getting us to the point that we are at today, Future Ready Oregon is another one of those developed through policy advocacy. So you can see why government and community relations is really critical to our work, right? And so the focus of FRO, when I saw FRO, I was like, well, I got my hair in twists. It's not in a FRO today, but okay. Okay, they told me not to quit my day job, so. It is what it is. I still have a little goofy side to me. So the focus of FRO is to provide opportunities for priority populations in workforce development. And this is important because when we talk about the priority populations, we're talking about communities of color, women, low-income communities, rural and frontier communities, veterans, persons with disabilities, incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals, members of Oregon's federally recognized Indian tribes, individuals who disproportionately experience discrimination in employment on the basis of age, and individuals who identify as members of the LGBT community. We have our work cut out for us. There are many populations that we have to serve and that we are charged with serving and making sure that we're not only serving them, but we're exceeding their expectations, but also excelling in our mission to advance student success, support student success. And so this program is focused on career pathways, which is currently in the phase of capacity building. Another focus is credit for prior learning, which is focused on further automating our credit for prior learning processes and better aligning opportunities to match student needs. And also, hopefully, because I haven't gotten the word yet, hopefully a Workforce Ready grant, which we were awaiting notification on, I haven't heard yet, but that will help us focus our workforce programs in manufacturing, specifically with the focus on machine manufacturing technology. Boop. So I'm getting ready to bring it to close. This is something that has also followed me really over the last 3 to 4 years, and so this is something that I don't change. This is something that I truly believe, and so I want to read it to you in terms of, if you ever ask me what's my belief about students or faculty or students or community or board, well, here it is. When it comes to the work that I do, these are my unchanging beliefs. And so I believe that our students are essential to our core mission and purpose, and we must be diligent as advocates for their success to promote lifelong learning and overall socioeconomic well-being. I believe our faculty are vital to the student learning experience. We must sustain a culture of academic freedom, faculty development, and sufficient resources to yield high-quality outcomes for our students. I believe our staff are valuable to the student experience. We must create an environment that encourages and supports continuous improvement, innovation, customer service, and effective communications. I believe our community is indispensable. We must work collectively to solidify partnerships and sustainable resources for the advancement of student learning and long-term success. And I believe our board is the driving force behind the college. In the collective interest of the college, we must be responsive to the diverse and evolving needs of our students, community, workforce, and economy. And this is what I believe. So I was good at one time. So it's just like an institution. We've done some stuff that's good, but here you can say, I'm like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just know to jump and get into the pit. And so that's me competing in long jump, which was my professional event. But then I got better. And you can see my form has changed. So PCC has gotten better. Like we don't perform like we did yesterday, but we've gotten better. But guess what? PCC, we've got to be our best, right? And so you can see, in each of those 3 pictures, my form was different because I did the same event, i.e. PCC does not change, our mission doesn't change, but I changed my approach, I changed how I discipline myself, I changed my mindset, and I learned to compete with myself and not others. I focus on what can I do to be better, to be the best that I can be. And you can see, so each of those marks, the last picture, I jumped my highest mark in my whole life, and that's 22 feet 6 at Mount Sac. So that's, yeah. So, does a president have pressure? Heck yeah. Yes, but pressure is often focused on achieving short-term goals. Good presidents achieve these goals. Great presidents find ways to build long-term capacity and success in the institution. And if you know anything about me, I don't settle for good. I'm not status quo. I'm not your average president. I'm not your average person. I'm not your average anything. And so, you know, if you wonder why I say that, I say it largely too because when I was born crippled and I had the world against me. Doctor said I would never walk or run. I'd always be in a walker and I would never thrive and to have the quality of life that a child should have, but I defied the odds, and that has really shaped who I am and why I take challenges like a bull by the horns, and why I speak the way I speak, because I've overcome a lot of things in life that you may not know. You have overcome a lot of things in life that those sitting next to you don't know, but guess what? It has shaped the person that I am today, and I don't change because of environments or circumstances, but I do try to bring the best of Adrien every day so that you can see that you too can thrive, you too can stand, and you too can make it even in the midst of challenges and hardships. So, I've said quite a bit. And now for why we are here. So I want to take a moment. We're going to listen to and see a student spotlight that just has such an impactful story, and it's just a beautiful story when you see it. So I'm going to step aside while they play it, and then we'll have a special presentation shortly after.
My whole life, I've loved art and I've loved to paint. Watercolor is my favorite. When I paint, I think about the impermanence. Everything here is temporary. And for me, it really helps me focus in and treasure all that I have in the moment, in the present. Because I know it's fleeting and it will pass. And it helps me cope with my disease too. Living with a progressive form of MS. People with disabilities, they're amazing. They are strong because they have to be, right? And having a disability creates a lot of really unique skills in somebody. For instance, I am an amazing problem solver. Like, I have to be very, very creative and quick and not get upset when I see a problem, right? Just think, okay, how can I solve this? How can I get around it? I was working a retail job, and my MS was progressing, and I was facing a lot of ableism, to be quite honest, and especially in the workplace, and I wasn't able to get accommodated. And I lost my job. And I had difficulty finding new employment. And so I decided to go back to school and find out what I could do to help that situation. I love art, and I thought initially if I could get a degree in art and somehow have a position in the community, have a visible position of employment, just by virtue of that, it would break down a lot of the stereotypes about disabilities. I was really involved with disability services the first year, and for my second year at PCC, I got offered a job as an accessibility advocate. I have been able to do so much as an accessibility advocate. It's been a dream. Like the Accessibility First Employment Week. I'm trying to get employers to think about disability differently and think about disability creatively and all the benefits that somebody that lives with a disability can bring to the workplace. What those accommodations look like, why they should be made, why it's helpful to make them, and what it looks like when you have a supportive, inclusive environment for somebody to thrive. For persons with disabilities, the pandemic made things incredibly accessible. I could not have done a fraction of what I've done if I wasn't able to do this remotely. Having a disability, things are harder and slower physically for me, just like logistically. For instance, using a wheelchair, the time it takes for me to get my coffee, to take a shower, to get to my car, to get loaded into my car and wheel across campus and to a class or something, that's a lot of work and it's exhausting. And it also takes a lot of time. And I'm really afraid that all this is gonna go away. It's night and day in my life. You know, to even have the opportunity to get like some work experience and to get like a good job and to get like off of disability and like not live in poverty anymore. I will graduate next year. And when I do, I'll have 2 years of work experience in the field that I want to work in. I will have my associate's degree. A college education is something that I always aspire to. It's been a dream of mine. I might cry. Sorry. This is something that I've wanted my whole life and something that I've tried to get my whole life. And it just wasn't always available to me. Before the pandemic, before PCC, my life was so different. And this is the life that I've always dreamed of. At least I'm getting close to it.
Y'all help me honor and welcome Precious Golden. Beautiful story. I'm going to give these to Sarah on your behalf, but the flowers, and then you're going to be the first recipient of the baton for New Services. I just want to tell you to keep using your voice, keep impacting positive change by your story. Thank you. Thank you. And this is why we do what we do. And we can't continue to do the same things the same way without evolving to meet the students' needs. And so Precious is just a true example of the impact of PCC in many ways.
Well, thank you. That is an example of what PCC can do. And I am having a very difficult time being here today. I made that video last winter. And in that video, I choked up because at the idea that my access would go away. Because I didn't have access to college before the pandemic. And this fall, we are returning to 50% in-person classes and removing 50% of remote learning. That means that for myself and many other students, we got those boxes for the first time.
Would you?
She was not supposed to speak. She's a long place husband. She's not supposed to say anything. Yeah.
We've had a wonderful display of acknowledgement and access. And there's no way, no reason not to move forward with remote and online and in-person. For persons with disabilities, this is the one path that people have to get off of disability, to get retrained, to get back into employment. In addition, disability is the largest precursor to houselessness. And 57% of Multnomah's houseless population are persons with disabilities. So we have a real opportunity to reach out to folks with disabilities and help them make that bridge back to gainful employment and create a better world. Because while many, if not most of you, are still standing today, tomorrow you might not be. And what will that world look like? Disability is the only marginalized group that you can unexpectedly find yourself in. And it's not one you want to find yourself in, believe me. So I beg you all. Access for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Bennings for sharing your time with us this morning. You can see Dr. Bennings again during the open conversations into PCC workplace culture change this afternoon at 1:30. This will be a virtual event and pre-registration is required. You can find the registration link in the Monday calendar of the in-service website. And also, thank you to Precious for sharing your story. You're a reminder for all of us of why we do what we do here at PCC. Speaking of what we do and why we do it, nobody knows the answer to this question better than our classified, academic professional, full-time and part-time faculty colleagues. Your resilience during these past 2.5 years has helped PCC hold steady during times of uncertainty. At the rudder of that ship stand our Federation presidents, Frank Goulard and Jeff Greider. Now, Frank is not able to join us today, so we do have a representative from the Federation, Ben Cushing, who is the organizing officer, joining us here today. So in a moment, I'm going to have Ben present, as well as he'll be followed by our Classified Federation President, Jeff Greider. So Ben, would you like to come on up?
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing? So I'm Ben Cushing. I'm a faculty member in sociology at Cascade, and I've been at PCC for quite some time. And I'm also the organizing officer for PCC FFAP, which is our union of academic professionals and faculty at PCC. To me, it feels really good to be in this room with you all. I've really missed the community that I feel at PCC, and it strikes me as I'm sitting here this morning that one of the things that we're feeling, this sense of like collective joy of being together, that's solidarity. That's what solidarity is. So we've been through really hard times. Many of us have lost people who we love. And all of us have seen transformations in our world and in our work that have been painful. I want to acknowledge the classified staff at PCC who've taken care of our campuses and our students in all kinds of different ways over the past couple of years. I also want to acknowledge our academic professionals who've bent over backwards to advise and recruit students, write grants, produce media, support students and faculty and the broader community in all kinds of ways as well. And last, I want to acknowledge the work of faculty who have taught classes from their bedrooms, which I did, and is weird, and their dining room tables, and who have been on the front lines with students who are facing houselessness, who are facing unemployment, racial and economic injustice. So thanks to our faculty. Over the past couple of years, we've seen young people, including many of our students, re-energizing the labor movement. So Gen Z folks are organizing at Starbucks. Yeah. Amazon warehouse workers are taking on the richest man in the world and winning. Nurses who have been stretched to the limit, to the breaking point, my wife's a nurse, during this pandemic, have been organizing not only to make their own work lives better, but also to make the experience of their patients better. So we can take inspiration from these folks, inspiration from their courage to fight for a more just and democratic workplace and society. So here at PCC, our work, creativity, and commitment to our students and communities makes this place possible. But while we've been in the trenches, major changes have been underway at the college. The reorg, which has certainly brought about some positive changes, has also caused new problems. And worst, managers pushed through the reorg when we were least able to lend our expertise. Today, PCC workers have historically low morale. Folks feel shut out of key decision making, and many of our members feel micromanaged and bullied. Still, despite these challenges, we continue to serve our students with compassion and with commitment. We continue to run this college. And we do it without hiring a single corporate consultant. We've also seen the ratio of managers to full-time faculty grow outrageously out of balance. Today, PCC has 400 full-time faculty and 275 managers. That's a ratio of 1.5 to 1. That's a lot of bosses. And it's not nearly enough faculty who have stable full-time employment. Around the country, the community college norm is about 3 to 1. We're at 1.5 to 1. That national norm is bad enough, and we're not even close. But still, we know that workers really run this place. Take a minute and imagine what the college would be like without us, without workers, with only managers. The difference would be striking. If we're going to make PCC a better place to work and a better place to study, if we're going to make it the kind of college that we and our students and our communities need, we're going to have to get seriously organized. This is a contract negotiation year, and we're going to need each other. I look forward to gathering with all of our FFAP members over in the courtyard, which is across from the bookstore in the CT building after lunch today at noon. We're going to rally at noon and have a meeting at 12:30. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks.
Hello. Got notes, that's a good thing, right? So, we are stronger together. It's kind of the basic idea of unions, right? My name is Jeff Greider. I use he, him pronouns, and I've worked at PCC for 20 years. You got the pin? I started at the bookstore as a casual employee, and then I had a part-time classified job. I then got another job as a casual public safety officer at the same time. And I have been a full-time public safety officer for over 15 years. I am your elected president of our classified union, AFT Local 3922, representing almost 650 classified employees here at PCC. It seems like a lot. It was almost 800 a few years ago, but we'll not talk about that. I'm also the elected executive vice president of our state affiliate, AFT Oregon, which represents around 17,000 classified employees and others in 23 locals across the state. Our national affiliate, the American Federation of Teachers, represents over 1.7 million workers across the country, including healthcare, Oregon Nurses Association. In fact, since the merger of AFT and AAUP, which is the American Association of University Professors, this summer, AFT is now the largest affiliate in the AFL-CIO. I usually save this acronym, yeah, that's worth a round of applause, right? I usually save this acronym for a trivia question at our afternoon meeting, but it's a freebie today. It stands for the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. It's a pretty big deal. I'll add that the AFL-CIO, AFT, NEA, and AFSCME are all currently led by either women or people of color. That's also a pretty big deal. Anyway, I serve on the Program and Policy Council for the PSRP division of AFT. Okay, last acronym, I promise. PSRP stands for Paraprofessionals and School-Related Personnel, also known as classified employees. School and college support staff is another way to describe us. But would we have to make that into another acronym? I don't know. All right, I think I do have a time limit here. I have been doing this for a while, at least 5 years. I was bad at placing things in time before COVID, and these last few years have sealed the deal on that. Because let me tell you, my brain is not getting any younger. The other day, someone referred to gray hairs as wisdom hairs. I'm okay with that. At this point, I'd take wizard hairs. I should have checked beforehand, but I think I've been doing this, speaking at in-service, for closer to 10 years than 5. I think I did it once even before I was president, so maybe 9. It's great to be back in person, even in this hybrid form. Let's have a round of applause for all the people, I would say mostly classified employees, who are working behind the scenes to make all this happen. Thanks to everyone who is working so hard to make it possible for students to attend PCC and improve their lives. Okay, better stick to these notes. Change is uncomfortable, even when it's necessary. One example of struggle that folks have right now is workload, right? Covering for vacant positions, just extra work because of weird new stuff with the remote. But we want to do it, right? So it's uncomfortable to push back and ask for overtime and stuff like that. But we need to. There are opportunities for positive change here. We've been talking about it all morning. Something I learned when I first became union president is stuff takes time. Can't do it all at once. There's still stuff on that original list that hasn't been completed. We did get some of it done, though. Together, during the last contract negotiations, we were able to make up for the last 10 years of raises that didn't keep up with the cost of living. Unfortunately, that just brought us back up to ground level, and the last 3 years of pandemic and inflation have dug us a nice new hole that we now need to climb out of. But we'll tackle that at the bargaining table, together. We also have to tackle it at the state capitol. We have to make sure that we get enough funding to keep things running. That's why unions are involved in politics, folks. We need to support pro-labor and pro-education policies and candidates. I'm probably going to get my mic cut off if I don't hurry. So a few announcements. We won't be holding a union meeting this afternoon. The classified retreat last week was a heavy lift, and I want to thank everyone who was able to join us, both in person and on Zoom. We had over 100 people in each category. And an extra thanks to those who helped plan and execute the event. Talk about stronger together. I certainly can't do this by myself. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Get some lunch if you're here in person. Well, you should probably get lunch even if you're not here in person. You know what I mean. And please support our FFAP union family at their rally. Stay tuned, and I'll see you soon at union lunch meetings later this term.
All right, this is the moment when we acknowledge years of service. So I'm going to ask those of us here who are present, and if there's folks watching remotely, you can play along as well if you'd like. But what we're going to do is, if you are able, if you could, everybody take a stand if you are able to do so at this time. Okay, so if you have worked at PCC less than 5 years, you may take a seat. How about everybody who has been working here for less than 10 years? You can now take a seat. Now, less than 20 years. Please take a seat. Let's see if we can go one more. Less than 30 years? Who's still standing? So for those of you who've been here 30 or more years, outside at the merchandise table, there's a little gift for you out there, so make sure you pick that up on your way out. Also, speaking of gifts, if you haven't figured it out yet, under each of your seats on the top right corner, and I'm not sure about the benches, but check underneath, because there is a little gift there for everybody. And if you have a certificate for a prize under your table, if you check inside, there's a certificate for a prize. You can also go by the table outside and pick up that prize, as well as bond information that we're going to be providing. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I know everybody's excited about getting their prizes, but thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us. You got it? Okay. Thank you for joining us in this new day as we stand as the amazing community that is PCC. One together, together one. Have a great year.